Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg, another episode of Find Your Film. This is episode 148. For this installment, you're going to get two sets of interviews, not by me. These are conducted by interviewer Eric Holmes, co-host of Find Your Film and Cinematics. He does two movies. He interviews director Brandon Kramer and producer Lance Kramer for this documentary called The First Step. And then secondly, he interviews Linoleum filmmaker, writer, director Colin West. So these are the two sets of interviews you're going to get. The First Step, currently as we speak, as hopefully you're hearing this on a Friday and Saturday, if you live near Los Angeles, because currently for this weekend it's going to be playing at the Laemmle Royal Theater, Los Angeles, and the filmmakers, the Kramers, Brandon and Lance, will be available. They will be holding Q&As after the February 24th screening and the February 26th screening. And then on February 25th, there's going to be a special at the 740 screening. There will be a attendance by both Brandon and Lance. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass will be there. Virgie Walker of People Coordinated Services of Southern California. Pete White of the Los Angeles Community Action Network. And Tyler James. So that post-screening discussion on Saturday at the Royal, I always think of calling it the Royale because of Pulp Fiction, but it's going to be at the Royal 740 this Saturday, February 25th. The First Step has an official website. I will put the link. Obviously, most of you are not in LA, and shout out to everyone outside of the US who have been supporting me and the guys here over at Find Your Film. Just really interesting cities that a hermit like me one day will travel to. I hope to travel to as many of these cities who listen to this podcast as possible. So anyways, that is the First Step. I'm going to actually link the website on the show notes. Secondly, Linoleum. This is a movie that both Eric Holmes and Bruce Purkey really love. In fact, Mr. Purkey gave Linoleum, written and directed by Colin West, 5 stars. Eric Holmes gave it 4.5 stars. And it stars Jim Gaffigan, who plays the host of a failing children's science show. And he wants to his biggest dream is to become an astronaut. Through a weird series of events, there's a rocket ship. He actually has a dream of building a rocket ship. And he's thinking maybe it might be too late for him, but there is a simple twist of fate, series of events, which leads him to finally follow his dream. The movie also stars Caitlin Nacon as his daughter, and his wife is played by Rhea Seehorn. And again, it's Jim Gaffigan as the lead. During the interview, West talks about working with Gaffigan, et cetera, et cetera. And also, why am I saying et cetera, et cetera? He was going to talk about the spoilers. It's an interesting interview because at the opening, Eric Holmes was saying, hey, eventually I want to ask about the ending of Linoleum. Unfortunately, he had only about 10 or 11 minutes. He wasn't able to get the spoilerific questions about Linoleum in time. That said, you can actually listen to Eric's interview with Colin West without being spoiled with any kind of ending discussion. So this is a spoiler-free interview with Colin West. As for Brandon Kramer and Lance Kramer and Colin West, they all give some really great what's in the box picks for Bruce Purkey. If you don't know what's in the box, what's in the box is about, Bruce Purkey every week on Cinematics, he picks a movie from the box and he and Eric review that film at the end of the program. So what Eric has been doing, and I should be doing this as well, but I usually ask a favorite movie question. But what Eric Holmes has been doing is he's been asking different filmmakers and actors to put a movie that they love in Bruce Purkey's What's in the Box segment. So that's why on the cover art here for episode 148, you see a cover shot of Lola, a cover shot. I'm looking at let me look at the cover art right now. A cover shot of The Overnighters, and also a movie called Crisis. The Kennedy films. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. It's called Crisis Behind a Presidential Commitment. All three of these movies are individually selected by these filmmakers, and it's cool. This is the whole idea of Find Your Film, is for people to find gems. I'm looking for movies to recommend and selfishly watch as well. So if you guys have any film recommendations for me and the guys to watch, hit me up at info@findyourfilms.com. But yeah, for this episode, you have the two movies spotlighted, as well as Crisis Behind a Presidential Commitment, Lola, the Jacques Demy film, which I haven't seen yet. Jacques Demy, I'm trying to look it up. Well, Jacques Demy, he directed this movie I really love called The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and that was ultimately an inspiration for La La Land. And I hear Lola's good, but it's really cool that Colin West recommended that film for Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes, and hopefully for me to see as well down the road. And then finally, that other movie, The Overnighters. Yeah, never heard of I'm not a documentary guy, so I haven't heard of the documentary films, including The Overnighters. I will put a Just Watch link for options that you can see these three films as well. So that is enough of me speaking. Thanks again from all over the world. I know I mentioned the Lamley Royal dates, but a lot of our listeners are outside the U.S. as well. So shout out to everyone who actually supports us three here on Find Your Film. Hopefully you're going to have a great week watching movies, and hit us up and tell us some movies that you feel are being either ignored, underrated, underseen, all that stuff, because we're on the search for interesting movies. All right, guys, hopefully you'll find some value in the two movies that Eric does interviews for, as well as these three movie recommendations. Take care and talk to you guys soon. Bye.
And I'm here with Brandon and Lance Kramer, writer and producer of The First Step. I really like this documentary, and I don't know if you see it this way. I see The First Step as a double entendre. One of them being obviously the First Step Act. But the double entendre portion of it I see is I don't think it's about the first step. I think it's about the first step is putting people before politics. And as much as it's a cliche to say that, people don't do that. And I think this documentary illustrates that beautifully.
Yeah, I think well said, Eric. That was the goal of making the film, was to really humanize and understand what is the personal, emotional journey of human beings fighting for other human beings who are currently locked up unjustly in prisons. And what does it look like to step into really uncomfortable places? What does it look like to build relationships across really painful dividing lines to get those people home from prison? This is a story that, Lance and I made this film because we were deeply concerned about the divisions in this country and the lack of progress on any of the issues that we cared about. And Van, Lewis, Jessica, all the advocates featured in this film, Virgie Walker, Pete White, Tylo James, Doug Copenhaver, all these people, they put their politics aside and took enormous personal risks to work across these dividing lines and make themselves very vulnerable and open them this painful and really difficult journey up to us as filmmakers. And we hope that the result of that is something that audiences can really sit back or sit forward and experience what bridge building in this divisive moment actually looks like from a very human, messy, personal perspective.
What's your thoughts on just political documentaries in general? Because a lot of them anytime I see a political documentary, my eyes roll in the back of my head and go, okay, this one's going to be cooked or whatever. But this one seemed to be pretty fair for the most part. I'm sure there are people who disagree because, as everyone knows, politics is a sports, rooting for your sports team. But I felt this one to be quite fair. But what are your thoughts of political documentaries in general?
I can share, Lance, if you have anything you want to add. I personally am less interested in documentaries. They play an important role, but as a viewer, I'm less interested in watching films that go in with a very specific message and point that they're trying to make. And the film is basically an argument for that point. Just personally, I'm more interested in seeing the complexities of politics play out and the contradictions, the paradoxes, and just being challenged. And so when we set out to make this film, Lance and I had conversations at the very get-go that if we're going to tell a story about bridge building, and this is frankly the ethic that we've put into all of our films, we need to create an empathetic experience that is not just with Van and his team, but is also with advocates on the left who opposed this bill, like Patrisse Cullors, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, or Pete White, who are doing incredible work on criminal justice reform, and really try to understand, what does it mean to have an abolitionist strategy, and why is that important? And also conservatives like Jared Kushner and Rand Paul and Senator Mike Lee, and what does it mean to be a conservative and be working on this issue, and why are their views important? And so the whole ethic of the film has been to create an experience where a very diverse group of people from different political backgrounds can watch a movie with people that they love and represent how they feel, and people that they don't like who don't represent how they feel. And the goal is not to be convinced of any one other political view, but to gain some understanding and empathy, and maybe like less walking out of the theater feeling like people that oppose their viewpoints or have different viewpoints are not enemies, but understanding that they have a different opinion, and this is why.
Anything to add to that, Lance?
Yeah, like Brandon said, I think, like you said too, politics to a certain extent is a sport. And so sports have teams. Super Bowl last night.
Yeah.
You don't just see one team play itself. Teams play each other. And so I think that it's important to gain a better understanding of actually what that looks like when the parties are trying to work through these differences, which nowadays seem to be really as significant, maybe amongst as significant as it's been in the country's history. But nonetheless, the meeting or the lack thereof of the parties needs to be understood better, because without that, we don't have a country. So I feel like there's a role in storytelling to play in narratives about rallying the troops and, fortifying a message. And I think that is important for all points of view to have those kinds of narratives. But I don't think it's just that. And I think part of the problem in the landscape around films, especially nonfiction films, is that the understanding about what is a political doc kind of stops there, where it's that a political film is just this point of view or that point of view, left, right, or whatever the case may be, this cause, this campaign. And that actually, like Brandon said, messiness of doing the work or trying to navigate conflicts in a productive way through the system doesn't have a lot of space. And I think it's really important to tell those kinds of stories if we're going to have a democracy.
Also, I saw that you have on IMDb, it's got Chris L. Jenkins listed as story consultant. What was his role in this, and how did that help kind of bring in the documentary together?
Sure. Chris is an amazing storyteller. He comes from a journalistic background. He worked at the Post for a long time and a bunch of other publications, and has been working in film the last decade more prolifically. Chris he has an expert understanding of criminal justice as just a set of issues. He's a Black man, so his just identity and own personal experience is different than ours. He's older than us also, so he just has different life experience, being someone that's 15 plus years older than us. Sorry to date him. But and was just an invaluable presence, in part also because he stepped into the process in the edit. So he wasn't there while we were in the thick of production, and came in with also a fresh set of eyes. So while we were like super deep in everything that was the film, Chris was able to step in with not just his identity and his talent as a filmmaker, but also the perspective of just being fresh. And he really helped us workshop the hell out of the film, and was there with us from a decently early part of the edit through literally the final cut, and has still been out there, helping us to navigate the kind of perilous waters of distribution. And there was several other people like Chris, editorial consulting editors like Eddie Martinez and Carol Deisinger, Steve James, Louis Erskine, unfortunately, who passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
But, these amazing artists, filmmakers that all threw their head and hearts into the edit in particular.
Yeah. So I guess just last thing, do you have, you've worked with Van Jones before, The Messy Truth, and I'm assuming that's what brought you along here. What was the, I guess the spark that's like, we did that. There's more story to tell. Let's do this one. And why this story in particular?
Yeah. So, we knew Van for a few years before The Messy Truth. So we already had a relationship with him
All
before even that. In the lead up to the 2016 election, Van was on CNN having these fierce debates with conservative pundits. Those debates were gaining a lot of traction. People were looking at those conversations as really a model for how to work through the polarization of the 2016 election. And Van, Lance, and I were talking about how, while that opened up a lot of doors and a lot of empathy and understanding, there was a different kind of conversation that wasn't happening on CNN in the studio, which needed to happen, which was in everyday people's lives, in their living room. And so we came up with an idea to pull together a team of filmmakers and came up with this idea to film Van going into the homes of Trump supporters in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, in the weeks before the 2016 election, very simply modeling how to have a conversation with people you disagree with. We shot it all in a day. We edited it with a team of volunteers. We released it on Van's Facebook page. The series blew up. It was seen by about 4 million people. It won a few Webby Awards. It led to the eventual creation of a CNN show called The Messy Truth as well. And that journey of just making this little web series that reached, millions of people's lives, when Trump actually won the election and was elected, and Van was setting out to spend the next 4 years working across the aisle under that administration, he graciously, there was a lot of trust between us, and he graciously opened his life and his team's lives up to our cameras and to us to capture that journey. It took a while to get the level of trust to, really make the film. So the first year of filming, we were, really trying to figure out, how do we tell a story like this? How do we get into the halls of the Senate, the White House, into these really sensitive backdoor conversations? How do we build that level of trust? And that took a while, but once we did, we were sort of locked into this story and didn't let go for 3 years, and then had 400 hours of footage. And it took us 2 years to edit it into what is now The First Step.
Oh, that sounds awesome. This seems kind of gauche even ask this, considering the conversation we've had so far. But my co-host has a box, and in that box are movies that people like to put into the box that they think are quite underseen. But I think with this, I kind of want to go a little specific. Are there any maybe political films or documentaries that you would like to put in the box that you think represent maybe some good ideas, or just represents fair filmmaking in the documentary sphere?
Yeah, I'll say something. Is this a metaphorical box, or is it actually a box?
He has an actual box. He writes it down, puts it in the box, and draws it every.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. I love movies, obviously. So I have a long list, but I'll pick one to put in the box if I can only put one in. It's a film called Crisis: Inside a Presidential Commitment. It was made by a filmmaker named Robert Drew, and then a team of filmmakers that included Richard Leacock and D.A. Pennebaker, a young D.A. Pennebaker. It's a film that they made during the Kennedy administration, where basically those filmmakers wanted to document what it looked like for Kennedy to essentially handle a crisis. And the crisis that they wound up documenting was when George Wallace blocked enrollment of the first Black students at the University of Alabama. And the film takes the point of view of how Kennedy dealt with it, how Robert F. Kennedy dealt with it at the Department of Justice, and then how George Wallace and the governor's mansion managed the situation, and then also how those students and their families navigated the moment. It's an incredible document of history. It's also just an incredible piece of filmmaking, because you see all these different points of view in real time going through this incredibly tense and pivotal moment in American history. And just the way it's told is like sensation, is phenomenal, but it's also very even-handed. And I mean, it was also just cinematically, I think, a breakthrough at the time, because they were just developing handheld cameras and things like that.
That sounds great.
I'll add to the box the documentary The Overnighters.
The Boondock Saints one? Or am I thinking of something else?
You're thinking of something else.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's a feature documentary. I don't think we're thinking of the same film. It came out, I don't know, maybe close to a decade ago at this point. And it follows a pastor of a church in North Dakota. It's an extremely complicated story about a protagonist that is trying something very controversial in his community. And it does an exceptional job of just showing this pastor in a really multidimensional light. You see him at his best and you see him at his absolute worst. And that film really helped me, but it never looks down at the pastor. There's plenty of films about public figures that, or people in the spotlight that look down at them. This film hits that sweet spot of being really honest and really empathetic, but also really tough on their subject. And that movie was a guiding light for me in how to capture and tell the story of Van Jones in particular.
All right. Well, it sounds great. Brandon, Lance, thank you for coming on. Yeah, you guys did great on this. And it's a breath of fresh air to see a political documentary that feels fair and balanced. And so congratulations to you guys on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate the chance to talk about the film and appreciate all that you do with the show.
My dad used to always say, there are two kinds of people in the world, Cameron. Astronomers and astronauts. Some look at the stars, others swim in them.
You look like a younger, better-looking version of me. You don't believe me, do you?
It's a really crazy story, Ken.
Tony, did you give the Saturday morning slot to another show?
They want a different host.
Kent Armstrong. I can't believe you crashed your car yesterday.
I'm afraid I have no idea what you're talking about.
He's like my antithesis. What?
Some old-ass Russian rocket fell from outer space and it crashed in our backyard. Welcome to Fairview Heights.
You think this is just chance, all of this happening right now?
You're a scientist. What else would it be?
Can I see it?
Sure. Come on.
You've got this pile of rocket crap right here. Why don't you just build your own rocket?
It's not that simple.
Yeah, it might be.
Remember when we used to talk about doing something fantastic? Whatever happened to that?
I'm the only one who's even remotely rational anymore.
Oh, you built this thing in like a month?
Yeah.
I'm about to do a test of the booster. You want to check it out? 3, 2, 1.
What?
Wait. Einstein came up with a theory of relativity when he was 26.
You go do what you're destined for.
It's not that simple.
It's not that simple.
Not that simple. Why do you always tell yourself that?
What are you doing?
Something fantastic.
The view is so great from out here, Cam.
Shuttle launch, 90 seconds.
Now, open your eyes.
So I'm here with Colin West, writer and director of Linoleum. And
hello.
I kind of want to start with Jim Gaffigan, but and I hope I'm saying the name right. Caitlin Nacon,
yes.
Caitlin Nacon. We just covered. We just recorded our this week's episode, and we covered. She was in a movie coming out this week called Devil's Peak.
Oh yeah,
and so she's got a 1-2 banger like back to back. So that's kind of
she's
fun.
Killing it. She's got 3 films going on right now. Like it's crazy, and they're all like. It was funny. I remember sort of like talking to her about all these different projects she was working on, and like as we were shooting Linoleum, and she's like, I wonder when they're all going to come out. And literally, it's all like within a couple of weeks. She's got these like all these projects. It's great. It's really great. I'm happy for her. She's an incredible actor.
Yeah. And I want to jump to Jim Gaffigan. He's fantastic in this. So much so that him as Cameron. And I kept he also plays Kent Armstrong. And I was like, oh, who's that guy playing Kent Armstrong? He's such an asshole. oh wait, that's him. But people get so surprised when comedians turn out to be great actors. And I loved him in this, loved him in Troop Zero, obviously loved his stand-up. But he's like next level in this, like to the point where his different characters are actually different characters. And I just see him as two different people.
Totally, Eric. I'm glad that you're latching onto that. I think Jim really is, he's got such talent that I'm glad like is being really recognized here. Obviously, he's done some other dramatic roles and stuff like that too. But it's great to see sort of like the recognition start to happening, especially around this film. I mean, it's interesting. Like he's always had a, you know, wanted to do and has been doing sort of dramatic roles here and there. And it's funny, I remember talking to him on set and he was like, Colin, you know, if I could do indie films from Monday to Thursday and then do stand up Friday to Sunday, I'd be a happy man. So he just loves it. I mean, I think he loves interesting stories and interesting characters. And obviously this one was definitely another sort of additional challenge in that he did play these two characters who were sort of like really sort of psychologically, physically very different people. And it was actually quite interesting to work with him on set, especially on the days that he played both, where, you know, he'd play one person in the morning and then we'd put a wig on him and do all the different clothing, and then he'd come back the afternoon and play the other side. He would really sort of turn into a different person. You know, he'd put that suit on for Kent and become like this very sort of stoic, you know, guy that nobody wanted to mess with on set, you know. And then when he was his sort of main, you know, Cameron, everybody was, you know, he's the Jim we all know and love. But he's a really impressive actor with a great collaborator.
Now, how did you get him for this? Did you have to have him read through? Because if Cameron and Kent don't work as two different people, I don't know that I won't say the movie falls apart, but it's not as strong as it could be. How did you know going in that he could pull that off? Not just him being a comedic actor, but I think just actors in general might have issues with that.
Absolutely. I mean, but it's kind of like, to me, I think like talent translates, and they're like knowing how talented he is as a comedian, how confident he is. Look, like performing for him is nothing new. Like he goes on these tours where he's doing stand-up every night for, you know, hours and hours at a time, and for months, you know, on end. And so there is this comfort that he has, you know, especially even just talking to him. He's a really grounded, honest individual. And I think that was, it was very easy to latch on to that and see like the ways in which we could sort of like lean into that version of him, and also sort of do, you know, have a heart to heart and talk about like this other sort of like, this darker character that he has to play as Kent. And it didn't, I mean, we didn't do any, you know, we didn't do read throughs and stuff like that. It was because to me, like, I know the talent is there. Like I can see the character in him, especially I think because I'm also the writer on this project, that, you know, the project was sort of like really born within, you know, the confines of my brain. And so I can see sort of like, I can see it working, you know, and it's just following your gut in such a way that it really worked. And he, you know, on our first phone call, you know, came in with all these really amazing ideas about how he wanted to approach both characters and taking it really seriously, and in a way that like I could see that he was, you know, genuine about it. He wasn't, you know, obviously we didn't, you know, this is a small film, like we didn't give him a big paycheck or anything like that. It was, he did it out of passion, and I think it's really great that he's being recognized for sure.
Yeah. I also want to get into some spoilers at the end, but before we do that, we can cut out and put, you know, after the movie comes out. Sure. But before we get to that, what is Linoleum? I know what Linoleum floor is, but the title didn't connect with the movie.
Sure. So Linoleum, the title, so Linoleum itself is, yes, it's a type of flooring. And we kind of joke at festivals that like, it's our documentary about flooring, you know? But it's essentially, it comes down to the idea, of bringing the fantastic to something simple. And linoleum flooring being this obviously surface that we ended up using the same sort of like dark red burgundy linoleum flooring throughout the whole movie and every set that we constructed or went to. So we'd get there, and the first thing we do is lay down a bunch of this linoleum all over the floor. Now, is it like the main character in the film? No, but we do have, we do sort of focus on it. And what we were trying to do was kind of tie this world together subjectively through the point of view of our lead character, who you find out within the first 2 minutes that he's an unreliable sort of narrator. So, looking at like the basement set of the movie, which is like sort of we would always call it the brain of the movie, which is where sort of all of these, pieces of the film are drawn from, is this basement. Starting from there and seeing like, how can we use all of those props and everything in that room again in a different part of the movie. And so that's what we ended up doing, was actually kind of drawing out that stuff. And the flooring ended up being like this kind of cohesive kind of material that drew it all together. And also the fact that like that kind of speckled pattern really looks like the cosmos, but it's down instead of up, I thought was this sort of nice kind of idea. And again, like, this way in which it's titled Linoleum, I think it also sort of gets you in the mood for like, wait a minute, like it gets you asking questions like immediately, which I think is kind of the puzzle of it, which is what I really appreciate about that too.
Oh, it's not that easy, but I do love the theme of it's not that easy going through it. It kind of inspired me on other things, like just in my own life and projects I want to do. Is like, maybe it is. You just got to go for it, and I love the idea behind that.
Well, thanks, Eric. Yeah, that whole idea, and I think the quote is, "It's not that simple." And every character in the movie says that at some point in the film or another, and it's really interesting because that's a very scientific concept. This idea that the simplest answer is usually the right one. Often in science, that's like a very sort of like quick go-to. And I think that like bringing that and other sort of scientific concepts into the movie thematically really, I think, helped kind of build out this world and sort of this emotional core via like this conceit of science. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In fact, you says here you won a Sloan Science of the Screen Award, and this movie is pretty science heavy, which I totally appreciate.
Yeah, it is. And we were really honored to get the Sloan Science Cinema Prize over at San Francisco Film Festival. They were a great supporter with us, and I think, liked the way, and I appreciate this too, the way in which it uses science sort of emotionally to tell the story. It isn't necessarily about the nuts and bolts of science. Like, that isn't what we get into. It's really more about like how these scientific concepts have worked their way into our own kind of like emotional construction, rather than the physical construction of the outside world. We're also looking in. So that was, but yeah, I feel very, very indebted to them too. So
yeah. Well, I wanted to do some spoiler question. I don't know if we have time, but I do have to ask this because my co-host Bruce has a box. We have a "What's in the Box" segment. And
what's in the box?
We have people put movies in the box, maybe lesser seen movies, or maybe movies from your past that mean something to you. And he puts the movie into the box. And I would like you to put a movie into the box that he can pull out. He pulls one out every week, and then we watch it for the next week.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Oh, man. That's so exciting. Okay, I have a movie you could put into the box.
Let that movie be.
This movie is called Lola. It's from the 60s. It's Jacques Demy's first film. It's a black and white film. It's French. And it's nice and short, but it is a brilliant film that inspired even some of the structure of Linoleum. And it's kind of this ensemble piece about a town and how people are related within the town. And it's just a brilliant sort of like look at the way in which we're all kind of threaded together. So I'd recommend that one.
Awesome. Well,
put it in the box.
It's in the box. Thank you for taking the time. I don't think we got time for the spoiler questions, but you know what? Maybe this is just a movie that I'm gonna have to rattle around in my head and figure it out for myself.
Please do. Yeah, watch it a second. It's better to watch on the second time anyway. So
yeah. But thank you for your time, Colin. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Eric, so much.